Victoria couldn't stand Tunde's modest lifestyle anymore. The small apartments, the lack of lavish gifts, and the constant penny pinching were not the life she dreamed of. When she met Chief, a wealthy businessman with an enticing smile and a promise of luxury, she decided it was time for an upgrade. Tunde, heartbroken but refusing to beg, watched as Victoria walked out of his life, her head held high as she chased after a future filled with gold and glamour. Little did Victoria know the man she had chosen wasn't the answer to her dreams. Chief's wealth dazzled her at first. Expensive dinners, trips, and jewels. But beneath the surface, she began to sense something sinister about him. His sudden outbursts and controlling nature started to unravel the luxury she sought. Soon, the allure of wealth began to feel more like a golden cage. Devastated but determined, Tunde threw himself into his passion for technology. Late nights turned into early mornings as he worked tirelessly on an app idea he had long cherished. The world outside felt bleak without Victoria, but Tunde chose to channel his pain into something meaningful. He was driven by more than just a broken heart. He wanted to prove that wealth was not the only measure of a person's worth. As he coded line after line, Tunde found solace in his project. He was building something extraordinary, though he wasn't entirely sure if it would ever succeed. But that wasn't his primary goal. It was about regaining a sense of self-worth, something he felt he had lost when Victoria left him. Each breakthrough on the app felt like a step forward, away from the shadows of his past. Victoria soon began to see that her new life with Chief was not what she had imagined. He controlled everything: how she dressed, who she spoke to, and where she went. At first, she rationalized his behavior as care, telling herself he was just protective. But as time went on, his true nature revealed itself in the form of manipulative games and emotional abuse. The luxurious mansion that once felt like a dream turned into a prison. Chief's smile, which had once seemed so inviting, now only filled her with dread. She began to miss the simplicity and warmth of her life with Tunde. The nights spent laughing over simple dinners were far better than the cold silence she now endured. Victoria realized she had sacrificed true love for wealth, and the price was too high. One fateful evening, as Tunde was about to give up on his app, a message popped up on his screen. A prominent investor had come across his work and was interested in collaborating. At first, Tunde thought it was a scam. After all, things like this didn't just happen to people like him. But the more he looked into it, the more it seemed legitimate. Within weeks, Tunde found himself negotiating deals, his app attracting attention from the biggest players in the tech industry. It was an overnight success, going viral and turning him into a millionaire almost instantly. Tunde was no longer the poor man Victoria had left behind. He had become someone far beyond her wildest imagination, someone who had made his own fortune. As Chief's behavior grew worse, Victoria's once confident demeanor began to crumble. His controlling tendencies turned into outright aggression. He monitored her every move, making her feel more like a possession than a partner. She no longer had friends to turn to. Chief had seen to that. She was isolated, alone, and trapped in a gilded prison of her own making. Victoria thought of Tunde often during those moments of despair. She regretted ever leaving him. The love and respect he had given her now seemed priceless compared to the lavish emptiness of her new life. She started to imagine what her life could have been like if she had chosen love over luxury, realizing too late that she had given up the only person who truly cared for her. Tunde's name began to make headlines. He was the face behind a revolutionary new app that was transforming the tech world. One day, Victoria saw his interview on TV and her heart sank. He looked confident, successful and happy, everything she had once wanted. She realized that she had underestimated him, that Tunde had the potential all along, but she had been too blinded by greed to see it. Desperate and hopeful, Victoria decided to reach out. She wanted to explain herself, to apologize, and maybe, just maybe, get another chance. She found his contact information through a mutual friend and sent a heartfelt message, but there was no reply. Tunde had moved on, and it seemed he had no intention of looking back. Victoria was determined not to give up. One day, she decided to go to an event where she knew Tunde would be present. She dressed in her finest clothes, hoping to win him back with her charm. When she finally saw him, her heart pounded. He looked even more handsome and confident than she remembered. She approached him, her voice trembling as she called his name. Tunde turned, and their eyes met. For a moment, Victoria saw a flicker of emotion, recognition, perhaps even nostalgia, but it vanished as quickly as it came. Tunde greeted her politely, but there was a coldness in his eyes that Victoria had never seen before. She realized in that moment that the man she had once known was gone. This was a new Tunde, one who had outgrown her. Meanwhile, Victoria's life with Chief was becoming increasingly dangerous. One night, she overheard a conversation that chilled her to the bone. Chief was involved in illegal activities, money laundering, extortion, and worse. She realized that the wealth she had been so eager to obtain came at a price far greater than she had ever imagined. Fear gripped her as she understood the extent of Chief's power and the danger she was in. Victoria knew she had to leave, but Chief was always watching. She had no money of her own, no friends to help her, and nowhere to go. The realization that she had traded her freedom for a gilded cage was crushing. She needed a way out, and there was only one person she could think of who might help: Tunde. With no other options, Victoria swallowed her pride and reached out to Tunde again. This time, she was honest about her situation, telling him everything about Chief's cruelty and the danger she faced. She begged for his help, not for love or reconciliation, but simply for a chance to escape. Tunde read her message, and for a long time, he said nothing. Tunde had every reason to ignore her. She had broken his heart, left him when he had nothing, and now she was asking for his help. But as he thought about it, he realized he couldn't just turn away. Despite everything, he wasn't the type of person to leave someone in need, especially someone he had once loved. He agreed to meet her, but on his own terms. Tunde met Victoria in a secluded cafe, far from Chief's usual haunts. She looked different. Her once confident demeanor was replaced with fear and desperation. She explained everything, her voice trembling as she recounted the horrors of her life with Chief. Tunde listened, his expression unreadable. When she finished, he nodded and agreed to help her. But he made it clear that this wasn't about rekindling their past. He devised a plan to get Victoria out of Chief's grasp. With his newfound wealth and connections, he arranged for her to leave the city and start over somewhere new. It was risky, and they both knew it. Chief was powerful, and if he found out, there would be consequences. But Tunde was determined to see it through, not for Victoria, but for the sake of doing what was right. The night of the escape was tense. Victoria had to act as if everything was normal, even as her heart raced with fear. Tunde had arranged for a car to pick her up at midnight, driven by someone he trusted. Victoria packed only what she could carry, leaving behind the expensive clothes and jewelry that had once meant everything to her. She was ready to leave it all behind. As the car pulled away from Chief's mansion, Victoria felt a mix of fear and relief. She didn't know what the future held, but she knew she couldn't stay any longer. Tunde had given her a chance to start over, and she intended to make the most of it. She looked out the window, watching the city lights fade into the distance, and for the first time in a long time, she felt hope. Victoria settled into her new life, far from the city and Chief's reach. She found a job, a small apartment, and began to rebuild herself from the ground up. She often thought of Tunde, grateful for what he had done, but she knew better than to reach out again. She had hurt him too deeply, and she had no right to ask for more than he had already given. One day, while browsing the news, Victoria came across an article that made her blood run cold. Chief had been arrested in a major sting operation. His illegal dealings had finally caught up with him. The article mentioned an anonymous tip that had led to the arrest, and Victoria realized with a shock that it had to have been Tunde. He had not only helped her escape, but had also ensured that Chief would never hurt her again. It was a revelation that filled her with both gratitude and guilt. Tunde's actions had changed the course of Victoria's life, but it had also revealed the strength within herself that she never knew existed. She had escaped from the life of a gold digger, learning the hard way that wealth without love was meaningless. Tunde had not only saved her life, but had also helped her discover her true self. Months later, Victoria decided to reach out to Tunde, not to rekindle their past, but to express her gratitude. She sent him a message, and to her surprise, he responded. They arranged to meet, and as they talked, a new understanding blossomed between them. They had both changed, grown from their experiences, and perhaps, just perhaps, a friendship was possible. As they spoke, the shadows of the past began to lift, and Victoria realized that sometimes losing everything leads to finding what truly matters.